My name is Alex, and I'm a sonar technician. Or I was. I don't know what I am anymore. I'm writing this on a scrambled, low-bandwidth satellite connection from the RV Odyssey, a state-of-the-art research vessel currently adrift somewhere in the North Pacific. I don't know our exact coordinates. The navigation system is fried, along with most of our other electronics. The power flickers. The emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows that my mind keeps twisting into shapes I don't want to see. I need to get this out. I need someone to know what happened. No one will believe it, but I have to try. Because if I'm right, if what we found is what I think it is, then the world needs to know that the maps are wrong. All of them. There are places that don't exist until they want to. 3 days ago, life was normal, boring even. Our mission was a multi-month survey of the abyssal plain, 1,000 miles from anywhere. We were mapping the seafloor, generating high-resolution topographical data for a geological survey. It's a lonely job. Just 22 of us, a speck of steel and science floating on an endless expanse of blue. The crew was the usual mix. Captain Eva Rostova, a Russian woman with a will forged from Siberian iron. Dr. Aris Thorne, the lead biologist, whose ambition burned brighter than our deck lights. And the rest of us, techs, engineers, and deckhands, all falling into the familiar hypnotic rhythm of life at sea. The rhythm was this: the low, constant thrum of the ship's engines, the hiss of the ventilation, and the gentle, rhythmic ping, ping, ping of my multi-beam echo sounder. It was the heartbeat of my world. That ping would go out, a cone of sound plunging thousands of meters into the crushing dark, and a few seconds later, the echo would return, painting a picture of the world below on my screen. Canyons, ridges, seamounts. A silent, secret landscape of mud and rock. It was my job to listen to the whisper of the abyss. The first sign that something was wrong came on Tuesday night. A tremor. It wasn't violent, just a deep, powerful shudder that ran through the hull, rattling instruments and spilling my coffee. On the bridge, Captain Rostova was checking the seismographs. "Nothing," she said, her brow furrowed. "No quake registered on any global network. Must have been a localized slump." We thought nothing more of it. In the deep ocean, the Earth is always shifting. The next morning, everything changed. I came on shift at 0400, relieving a bleary-eyed Ben, one of the junior techs. "Anything exciting, kid?" I asked, clapping him on the shoulder. He shook his head, looking pale. "Nah, man, same old mud, but the readings are weird. Check the depth." I settled into my chair, the familiar glow of the 3 monitors washing over my face. The central screen showed the real-time bathymetry map we were building. The seafloor should have been around 5,800 meters down, a flat, featureless plain. But it wasn't. A thick black line cut across the screen. It wasn't a glitch. It was a void, a place where our sonar wasn't returning. I checked the raw data. The pings were going out, but they weren't coming back. Not from that one, impossibly straight line that stretched from the northeast corner of our survey grid to the southwest. "What the hell is this?" I muttered, running a diagnostic. The system was fine. I adjusted the gain, boosting the power of the echo sounder. The ping became a more forceful pang. I waited. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Finally, a faint echo returned. I brought the data up on the screen and my blood ran cold. The seafloor was no longer 5,800 meters down. Along that black line, it had dropped. The number that flashed on my display was so absurd I thought the machine had to be broken. 14,500 meters. "Captain," I said into my headset, my voice tight. "You need to see this." Rostova and Dr. Thorne were in my sonar shack within minutes. Thorne, a man who usually vibrated with restless energy, was unnaturally still as he stared at the screen. 14.5 kilometers, he whispered, his voice full of a scientist's awe, not fear. "Alex, that's impossible. The Mariana Trench is barely 11. "It wasn't there yesterday," I said, my voice barely a croak. "I have the logs. We mapped this exact stretch of seafloor less than 18 hours ago. It was flat. This trench opened up overnight." Rostova's face was grim. She leaned over my shoulder, her sharp eyes scanning the data. The trench was unlike any natural formation. It was terrifyingly uniform, about 2 kilometers wide, with sides that were almost perfectly vertical. It looked less like a geological feature and more like a wound, a surgical incision carved into the planet's crust. We started calling it the scar. Thorne was ecstatic. "This is the greatest discovery in human history. An active tectonic event on a scale we've never imagined. We have to get a look. We have to send down the ROV." Rostova was hesitant. "We don't know what caused this, Aris. An overnight trench 3 kilometers deeper than any known point on Earth. This is unnatural." "All the more reason to investigate," Thorne argued, his eyes gleaming. "Think of the new life forms, the geology. We have to deploy Triton 1. His excitement was infectious, and it overrode the captain's caution. By midday, the crew was prepping our primary remotely operated vehicle. Triton 1 was a workhorse, a boxy yellow submersible bristling with cameras, manipulator arms and sensors, tethered to us by a thick umbilical cable that spooled out from a massive winch on the stern. As they lowered it into the churning Pacific, I stayed in the sonar shack, which became the mission's nerve center. My job was to monitor the ROV's position and to listen. We had hydrophones, sensitive underwater microphones, deployed around the ship. Usually, all I heard was the mournful song of distant whales or the chatter of dolphins. But as the Triton descended past 6,000 meters into the mouth of the scar, the hydrophones started picking up something new. It was a sound, but not like any I'd ever heard. It was low, infrasonic almost, a deep, slow, rhythmic pulse. Thump, a 10-second pause. Thump. "What is that?" Rostova asked, standing behind me. "I don't know," I said, isolating the frequency. "It's not seismic. It's too regular. And it's not biological. It's too heavy. It sounds like..." I trailed off. "Like what, Alex?" "Like a heartbeat," I whispered. "A very, very slow heartbeat." Dr. Thorne scoffed over the comms from the ROV control station. "Don't be ridiculous. It's probably just water moving through some new vent system. Focus on the visuals." The Triton's powerful lights cut through the eternal darkness, illuminating the wall of the trench. It was black, volcanic rock, but it was wrong. It was smooth, almost polished, with strange geometric patterns etched into it, like a colossal circuit board. There was no sediment, no marine snow. It was utterly sterile. As the ROV went deeper, 8,000 meters, 9,000, 10,000, the water temperature began to drop, far colder than it should have been at that pressure. And the life we saw was aberrant. Pale, translucent fish with no eyes and too many fins darted away from the light. Twisted, spiral-shelled creatures clung to the walls, pulsing with a faint, sickly bioluminescence. Thorn was delirious with joy, naming new phyla every minute. I just felt a growing dread. This wasn't evolution, it was corruption. And all the while the sound continued. Thump, thump, thump. It was getting louder, more defined, and there was something else layered beneath it now. A faint, high-pitched chittering. It sounded like millions of insects. At 12,000 meters, Ben, who was piloting the ROV, started to get agitated. "I'm seeing something on the forward sonar," he said, his voice strained. "Something big. At the edge of the sonar range, I can't resolve the shape." On my screen, I saw it too. A distortion in the water column below the Triton. A mass that was absorbing our pings, giving us back nothing but a blurry void. It was colossal, easily the size of a city block. "What is that reading, Alex?" Rostova demanded. "I don't know, Captain. It's dense, but it's not rock. The signature is wrong. It's almost organic." The thumping grew louder, faster. The chittering rose in pitch, becoming a skittering, scraping noise that made the hairs on my arms stand up. It felt like it was coming from inside my own skull. "Bring the ROV up," Rostova ordered. "Now." "No," Thorn yelled. "Get us closer. I have to see it." "Ben, that's an order," Rostova snapped. Ben's hands flew over the controls, but it was too late. On the camera feed, the darkness ahead of the Triton seemed to coalesce. The water swirled. For a split second, the lights of the ROV glinted off something. Not a rock wall, something with a texture. Something that was vast and scaled, like a reptile, but impossibly large. And then, a shape resolved itself from the gloom. It wasn't a creature. It was an eye the size of our ship. It was filmed over, milky white and blind, but it turned slowly, deliberately, to face the ROV. The camera didn't have time to focus. The last thing we saw was a network of black veins spreading across that dead, white orb. Then came the scream. It wasn't a sound a living throat could make. It was a psychic shriek of pure malevolence that blasted through every speaker on the ship. It shattered the coffee pot in the galley, blew out 2 of my monitors, and made Ben collapse, screaming and clutching his ears, blood pouring from his nose. The ROV's camera feed dissolved into a blizzard of static. The telemetry flatlined. The winch holding the umbilical cable screamed as it was pulled taut, the thick armored cable groaning under an impossible strain. On the stern, sparks flew as the winch motor tried to fight whatever was pulling from below. "Cut the cable," Rostova roared into the chaos. "Cut it now." With a deafening bang, an explosive bolt fired, severing the umbilical. The tension released with a shudder that threw me from my chair. The severed end of the cable, thick as my arm, snapped back like a whip, smashing a chunk out of the ship's railing before slithering into the sea. Silence descended, broken only by Ben's sobbing and the low, terrified hum of the remaining electronics. The thumping had stopped. For the next few hours, there was chaos. Ben was sedated and taken to the infirmary. Thorn had locked himself in his lab, babbling about non-Euclidean biology and sentient geology. Captain Rostova tried to restore order, but the fear was a physical presence on the ship now. A cold, heavy blanket. I stayed in the sonar shack, my sanctuary. I couldn't leave. I had to listen. Night fell. The sea was unnaturally calm, black and still as glass. And the silence from the deep was, if anything, more terrifying than the noise had been. The absence of the thumping felt like a held breath, like the thing below was no longer sleeping, but waiting, watching, I kept the hydrophones active, straining to hear anything, and around 0200, I did. It wasn't the thumping, it was a new sound. It was movement. My sonar has a passive mode, where it just listens, and it was picking up a complex series of sounds from the scar. It was a scraping, dragging noise, the sound of something impossibly heavy shifting its weight. It was accompanied by the high-pitched chittering, which now sounded less like insects and more like whispers. Thousands of them, all talking at once in a language that felt like razors scraping across my nerves. And then, the worst sound of all, a low, resonant hum. It started barely audible, but it grew steadily in intensity. It wasn't just in the water. I could feel it vibrating up through the hull, into the soles of my feet, into my bones. It was a pure, clean tone, but it felt wrong. It was the sound of colossal machinery coming online. "Captain," I called, my voice shaking. "It's moving. Whatever is down there, it's moving, and I think it's coming up." I reactivated the active sonar, sending a single, powerful pang down into the trench. The return signal almost broke the system. The void on my screen was gone. In its place was a shape. It filled the entire 14-kilometer depth of the scar. It was a sprawling, jagged, asymmetrical structure of impossible size. It looked like a city, but a city designed by a madman, full of spires that pierced the dark and canyons that defied gravity. And the whole thing was ascending. I watched, paralyzed by a horror so profound it felt like a religious experience, as the sonar showed the entire bottom of the scar rising. It wasn't a creature living in a trench. The trench was the creature, or part of it, a colossal mouth, a maw in the Earth's crust that had opened, and now it was beginning to close. The hum intensified. On the bridge, alarms began to scream. The ship's compass was spinning wildly. The GPS was dead. The engines sputtered and died, then came back online at half power, then died again. The hum was an electromagnetic pulse, a weapon. It was shredding our technology. "Get us out of here," Rostova was shouting, her voice strained against the vibrating drone. "All power to the engines. Get us away from this spot." The engineers fought to get us moving, but we were crawling. Crippled, I stayed at my console, unable to look away from the screen. The structure, the entity, was rising faster now. 10,000 meters, 9,000, 8,000. The whispers on the hydrophones were clearer, weaving in and out of the hum. They weren't whispers, they were voices, and I could almost understand them. They were talking about time and hunger and worlds bathed in the light of weaker suns. Dr. Thorne stumbled into the shack, his face a mask of ecstatic terror. "Don't you see?" he screamed over the noise, pointing a trembling finger at my screen. "It's not a life form. It's a god. It's the architect. We are witnessing the birth of a god." He ran out onto the deck. I heard a scream a moment later, cut short. I don't know if he jumped or if something took him. The water around the ship had started to churn. The pale, multi-finned fish from the depths were swarming the surface, flinging themselves against the hull. I saw things in the water that I can't describe. Things with too many joints, things that were coiled and vast, drawn to the surface by the hum of their master. That was yesterday. Now we are adrift. The hum is constant. It's no longer just a sound. It's a pressure, a physical presence that squeezes the air from your lungs and makes your teeth ache. The power is almost gone. There are maybe 9 of us left. The others are gone. Some lock themselves in cabins and won't come out. Some just vanished. Ben is catatonic in the infirmary, staring at the ceiling, occasionally tracing complex, spiral patterns in the air with his finger. I'm in the sonar shack. It feels like the safest place, but I know it's not. The screen is still on, powered by the last dregs of a battery backup. The sonar is still listening. The entity stopped rising about a kilometer from the surface. It just hangs there, a continent of alien malice suspended in the water beneath us. It knows we're here. It's studying us. Or maybe we're just too insignificant to crush. Maybe it's savoring the moment. The hum has changed again. It has a melody now, a discordant, maddening tune that seems to rewrite the synapses in my brain. I see the patterns Thorne was talking about now, in the wood grain of the desk, in the static on the dead monitors, in the reflection in my own eyes. It's a language, a form of geometry that proves our reality is a fragile illusion. I can't stop listening. The hydrophone feed is the only thing that feels real. The whispers are inside my head now, even when I cover my ears. They're telling me things, showing me things. The birth of stars and the death of galaxies. The eons it spent sleeping, dreaming of hunger. It calls itself. The name is a sound that humans can't make, but it translates, roughly, to the bottom. It's not evil. Evil is a human concept. It is just vast and ancient and hungry, and it has woken up. I just sent out one last ping, a final, desperate question into the deep. The return echo painted a new picture on my screen. A part of the structure below is detaching. A smaller piece, though small, is a relative term. It's still bigger than this ship, and is coming straight up, directly beneath us. The hum is getting louder. The metal of the hull is groaning, beginning to buckle under the strain of the resonating frequency. I don't think it's going to hit us. I think it's just going to absorb us. The whispers are telling me not to be afraid. They say it's a gift, an ascension. They say we will get to see. We will become part of the city, part of the god. Our minds will be unspooled across millennia. My nose is bleeding. The light from my monitor is starting to warp, the edges bending inward. I can hear the water outside the ship boiling. The hum is a song now, a beautiful, terrible hymn, and I'm starting to understand the words. It's a call, a dinner bell ringing out across the dark, silent ocean. The floor is tilting. I can hear the ship's metal screaming. The screen shows the shape is now only meters away. I can see it through the floor. I can see its light. Oh God, the light. Log ends.